Chapter 6. The End of the War, Rejoicing at the Dawn of Peace, New Dangers, The Evil of Drugs, Terrible Visions, A Picture Drawn, Digging in Indian Graves for Subjects, Studying from the Great Book of Nature, The Ravages of that Terrible Disease Meningitis, Prayers and Medicine, Death of 4 members of my family, Is Medicine a Failure? The war ended as every thinking person must have reasoned it would end. Hate, passion, and avarice might prevail for a while, but in the end the spunky little South, which fought so gallantly, was compelled to yield to the determined North. On the one side, men and money became too scarce to continue the struggle longer. A surrender and peace was proclaimed, and human slavery ceased to be part of the institutions of America. All gladly quit the conflict and resumed the life of the peaceful citizen. I gladly left the field of bloody contention, with all others, to resume the duties of a private citizen. I was not too long in discovering we had habits, customs, and traditions no better than slavery in its worst days, and far more tyrannical. My sleep was well nigh ruined. By day and night I saw legions of men and women stagger to and fro all over the land, crying for freedom from habits of drugs and drinks. My heart trembled, my brain rested not by day nor by night, to see man made in the image of his Creator treated with such little respect and sense by men who should know better. I saw men and women dosed with drugs whose poisonous fangs showed the serpent of habit, that was as sure to eat its victim as a stone would return to the earth when cast into the air. I dreamed of the dead and dying who were and had been slaves of habit. I sought to know the cause of so much death, bondage, and distress of my race. I found the cause to be in the ignorance of our schools of medicine. I found that he who gave the first persuasive dose was also an example of the same habit of dosing and drinking himself, and was staggering form of humanity, wound helplessly tight in the serpent's coil. In vain he cried, "Who can free me from this serpent, who has all my liberties and joys of myself and loved ones?" In the anguish of his soul he said, "I wish I was free as the Negro for whose freedom I faced that deadly cannon 3 long years." "Oh," says one who is cultivating this habit of drugs and drinks, "I can quit my master any time I choose, but the nigger could not, because the law held him in slavery with rawhide whips, bloodhounds, and shotguns to torture him to obedience, and I am free to use drugs or quit just as I want to. If you will chalk his back and watch him, you will soon find him about a drugstore complaining of not feeling well. He has taken a cold and says, 'My wife belongs to church, and the meetings are held so late, the room so hot, I caught cold going home, and think I ought to take something.' Druggist says, 'Professor, I think a little Jamaica ginger and about an ounce of old rye is just what will fix you up.' Well, I will try some, I believe. Still, I hate to go to church stinking of whiskey. Chew a few cloves and cardamom seed, and they will disguise the whiskey smell," says the druggist. Soon church ends its night sessions, and Professor still comes with pains in back to say, I was out all last night after a fox, and caught more cold," and winks at druggist and says, "Fix me the same you did before, and give me half a pint to take to Granny." This hypocritical pretension became more and more disgusting to me. I, who had had some experience in alleviating pain, found medicines a failure. Since early life, I had been a student of nature books. In my early days, in windswept Kansas, I had devoted my attention to the study of anatomy. I became a robber in the name of science. Indian graves were desecrated and the bodies of sleeping dead exhumed in the name of science. Yes, I grew to be one of those vultures of the scalpel, and studied the dead that the living might be benefited. I had printed books, but went back to the great book of nature as my chief study. The poet had said that the greatest study of man is man. I believed this, and would have believed it if he had said nothing about it. The best way to study man is to dissect a few bodies. My subjects were the bodies exhumed from the Indian graves. Day and night, like any other grave robber, I roamed about the country, and often at moonlight, and often in the daytime, with shovel disinterred the dead Indian, and utilized his body for the good of science. Someone says the end justifies the mean. I adopt this theory to satisfy the qualms of conscience. The dead Indians never objected to being object lessons for the development of science. Their relatives knew nothing about it, and as where ignorance is bliss, it is folly to be wise.